Welcome to Valuification of Things, your one-stop podcast on the discussion of value, and especially business value. This is a forum where your host, Sri Sundaram, will be discussing topics on how to quantify value for practically any scenario. Along the way, we will have business leaders and subject matter experts describing their value journey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this podcast episode.
Hello, I'm Sri Sundaram, your host for this episode of the Valuification of Things. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Mark Ashbrook, Global Digital Transformation Leader, Business Strategist, Product and Program Management Expert. Today, we'll be taking advantage of his specialties in the intersection of artificial intelligence and professional services, especially in areas like legal tech and other billable advisory services. We'll explore the benefits of Gen AI in service-oriented professions and their biggest challenges. We will certainly explore the negative aspects of Gen AI related to stereotyping, false narratives, as service-oriented professions certainly have the human in the loop. We will talk about how organizations need to get ready to take full advantage of Gen AI capabilities. Now, Mark is a veteran digital transformation leader who has led many enterprise partnerships in many verticals as varied as agribusiness, legal firms, media services, professional services, etc. He has led Microsoft's worldwide agricultural community that enabled the sharing of market trends, knowledge, and insights. He has been a key member of an innovative initiative that looked at carbon sequestration, IoT, time series analysis, sensors, AI, ML, and operational farm insights. He also led a multinational team in the rewriting of Bill Gates' Future of Productivity white paper. Hello, Mark,
Absolutely.
and welcome to the Valuification of Things.
Hi, Sri. It's great to be here.
So let's get to it right away, Mark. Everyone gets the use of Gen AI by now. What is its unique business value in service-oriented professions?
Well, I think kind of looking across all professional services, I think we're all struggling to find where exactly it's going to fit in. We all know that it's going to provide value, but what I'm seeing is everyone's experimenting with it, looking for how exactly can they realize that value and get the most out of it. At the same time, also helping to avoid the mistakes or things that people have made in the past or the risks that AI also introduces. But I would say on the surface, it's mostly about productivity. And so for the billable hour, how do we get more hours? How do we get more work done? How do we make our workers more productive using generative AI?
I'm sure there are some costs and challenges that come about in
Absolutely.
thinking about Gen AI in this fashion.
Yeah, definitely. And there are a lot of issues or risks that we have doing this. And of course, there are experts out there, obviously. I don't claim to be an expert in this area, but from what I'm seeing, the most important one is the hallucinations Gen AI can produce. It challenges itself or it struggles to find you an answer, even if it has to make up the answer. For example, in the legal industry, we had this with a firm that presented an argument to a judge generated by Gen AI. Gen AI made up the cases it was referring to, and so it was quoting made up cases, essentially. The judge figured it out, ended up finding the firm, finding the lawyers, and of course, then it went all over the legal tech, and everybody kind of paused a little bit on using Gen AI. There's also the worry about just the way whole professional services work in general, which is a human billing an hour of work. And a lot of times, of course, we have fixed fee business models and things like that in professional services. But for those that charge by the hour, one of the things they're worried about is, well, now it no longer takes me hours to get this task done. With Gen AI, I can get it done in a couple minutes. Do I still charge for the full hour? Or ethically, do I need to let my client know I used generative AI and it now took me 5 minutes, but I'm going to charge you for the full hour? And then so how do we add more value to our services and not decrease our revenue coming in? and that isn't all of them. There are definitely challenges with, I think it's also human perception of what Gen AI can do as well. So when we ask a question, I mean, before when we were searching, whether it was searching on the internet or through our corporate document management system, we wrote our query in terms of something the computer could understand. We highlighted keywords, took out other keywords, and it would give us a search result that we could sort through. Now we're asking in plain English to Gen AI, and it's giving us an answer. On face value, it's like, great, we take that. However, we as humans have to test that answer out, make sure it's a valid answer. Also, so the other aspect then is prompt engineering, and teaching our users the ability to ask a question, refine that answer, have it give the Gen AI service or the chat service documents or examples or things like that of, hey, I want your answer to be in this format or in this kind of a context or with this view to the world.
You gave some interesting aspects there about the human in the loop. Let me go back to what you just said earlier. There's an ethical consideration for a billable service professional that says, do I charge the entire hour because I used the help of Gen AI? I would posit that there is the human in the loop, as you're talking about. So regardless of what Gen AI says, and especially related to what you just said about the false cases that they that the judge threw out, given that there is a responsibility of the human in the loop to look through the answer, make sure it's correct. Yes, it accelerated the process, but in the process, it gave you a better answer. So there is that to be considered too, right?
No, absolutely. And I think we can look at different cases in professional services. So if I was a programmer or consultant, I'm not charging my client for me handwriting out code, punching it on a punch card and feeding it into a computer to create a program. We're using IDEs or interactive displays to create our code that makes us faster and more proficient. We have intelligence built into our development tools that suggest the next line of code that needs to be written, or beginning to write a command line and it will prompt and tell you what you should put in there. However, we're not necessarily telling our clients, I'm using a tool that helps me write code faster. I don't have to get their I do have to get their sign off to the tools I use to build their code usually, unless it's like a fixed fee or something like that. But at the end of the day, they're paying us or me, if I'm that consultant, to write a solution to a problem and deploy it in the most efficient manner and most secure manner that's possible. The same is true using generative AI. It's just another tool that I'm using to help deliver value to my client. Whether that value comes from me double checking what generative AI is telling me and validating that that's the truth, that's real, and is that really my opinion? Or do I need to work with Gen AI a little bit more and coax it into giving me the answer that I'm looking for? In which case that takes time and thought. It may not take hours and hours. It could be minutes or seconds. But at the same time, it still takes the time to review it and present the right solution back to the client.
So thank you for that, Mark. We will take a brief break. When we come back, I'm going to ask Mark about some more of the negative considerations that he was talking about surrounding the use of Gen AI in professional services. We'll also delve into outcome-oriented scenarios where a service professional is more interested in the outcome of the service rather than the billability of the service.
This episode of Valuification of Things is sponsored by Valuify. Valuify is a free tool that allows you to create business value models. Go to valuify.net and click download to begin your valuification journey.
Welcome back. Today we are talking to Mark Ashbrook, seasoned digital transformation leader who has led many innovative multi-organization partnerships with a keen sense of business value. In this conversation, he has explained to us the business value of using Gen AI in professional services. He talked about the challenges and how some of it might affect the human in the loop. In this segment, we'll talk more about such challenges, the negative considerations. We'll also talk about outcome-oriented billing and how it could affect this industry. Finally, we'll also talk about how organizations can get ready to get on the Gen AI bandwagon. Finally, I'm hoping that Mark can give us a few success stories that he has seen us in the space. So Mark, as you know, data is the bedrock of Gen AI. And you also know that data can easily be misinterpreted to your convenience. Statisticians and politicians do this all the time.
I think early on, a lot of what I was hearing about with Gen AI was its biases. It's basically the training data. Now, with the latest advancements in the services we have available, like ChatGPT or Copilot from Microsoft or Bard from, and so there's a lot of them out there. Those are pre-trained models, yet we as users of those systems and models, we're not quite sure exactly what it was trained on. I've heard, some discussions around the different versions of ChatGPT, which I've seen. I do a search for something and I'm getting older results, and I know there's newer data out there. I guess one of the other things is the expense of doing generative AI. And so there's the services, the regular, kind of chatbot type services like ChatGPT or Microsoft's Copilot. But then there's the tools you can use and development that you can do in-house to do very specific things. One example is we're doing some work to evaluate clauses of a contract. And so we want to be able to bring in a contract that we're about to sign or that our clients are about to sign with someone else. Be able to look through all the clauses of that contract, look across the history of the contracts that we've done either for that client or other clients, and for each clause, tell the variability of how off is this clause from what we've signed previously. Where have we used a clause with this modification in other places? So it's kind of a massive search. We used to do that by hand. Picture a boardroom full of lawyers going through documents and clauses, trying to figure it out. Gen AI is doing it for us in a matter of minutes or seconds. At the same time, we have to be careful with the data set that we provided. Did we give it a good enough data set to really look across all our contracts? Question everything is the thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about it, because it's questioning the data. So did we give it the full range of the contracts we had? How far back did it go? Did we fundamentally change our business process or business practice and our goals and the way we sign contracts at a certain point in time? And there's different contracts after that point and different contracts before that point. And so there's all these nuances of where did the data come from? What was the data trained on?
So that's a great point, Mark, data readiness. What other aspects of organizational readiness that we need to be worried about?
I mentioned it a little bit before about the prompt engineering and basically training our users now to use AI in a specific way. It's kind of interesting because working in the modern workplace, the new world of work and all of this, we looked at, and we always had challenges with the way we work with computers is different than the way we work with individuals and humans. I've got the screen in front of me, I've got a keyboard in front of me and maybe a mouse, and it's all these clunky interactions. It's two-dimensional. And so we've trained our users on how to use this computer to get the results that they're looking for. We now have new tech that I can ask them open-ended questions and refine that question. So if I say, what's the weather today? It's going to give me what the weather forecast is, who knows where. And then I might say, well, give it to me for my location. And I can have an interactive conversation with generative AI and refine the questioning down further. A lot of adoption and change management and training for users on how now to communicate with generative AI, what to expect, and how to test where it's getting the answers from and validate that you're being told the truth and it's not hallucinating.
Let me go back and visit what you said earlier in the first segment of the conversation about how organizations can veer towards outcomes versus billability. I can use ChatGPT to guarantee you a faster outcome or accelerating the outcome. So in that sense, what are your thoughts about how does it affect billability? Because now I've spent 10 minutes in getting to your answer or researching your answer as opposed to the entire hour, but I'm still going to charge you the hour because I took the time to research or monitor the answer. look for it to see that there's indeed no false implications. Think about the human in the loop. Does Gen AI impact billing in making sure it's outcome oriented versus
Hmm.
time oriented?
I don't know if we really know the full extent of the impacts yet. If I were to guess, which this is guessing, I would see generative AI pushing us towards more subscription-based or outcome-based business models. However, there's still a need for hourly-based billing. I just need a person to fill that seat and do some work for me, as far as like tech or IT consulting. With a lawyer, I just need the solution to this problem, and you're going to charge me by the hour for it. That's fine. But when we start moving to outcome-based business models or value-based business models, it's more of a, as a client, I have a service that needs to be performed or an activity that needs to be done. I don't care how long it's going to take, I just need it done. We went through this in IT consulting about value-based pricing. It was not necessarily pricing a service based on the number of hours it took us to deliver that service, but more based on the value the client was getting from that service. It might take me 10 minutes and save them $100 million. Should I charge more than $100 to give them $1 million worth of value? And so I think the same debate and topic comes into play as Gen AI is influencing the way we bill and the way and our business models. Ethics also comes into play there, because I've seen the conversation kind of twist into ethics, which is, I'm used to billing by the hour. It's now no longer going to take me as long to do this task for my clients, so I'm going to make less money at it. However, if we looked at it from a billing or a value-based perspective, are they getting the same value out of it, or are they getting more value out of it? Is the data they're getting back or the information they're getting back more reliable, more stable, more or less unchanging? So I think professional services firms probably will start looking at other business models. I think the hourly bill rate, because it's easy to bill to, it's easy to do the accounting for hourly bills. I think that'll stay with us for a while longer. But what I heard a saying, it's generative AI is not going to take your job. It's the person who knows how to use generative AI. They're the one that's going to take your job. And while I think there's going to be a ton of disruption coming into the future, the fact is we just need to look at different business models and what our clients are really going after. And they're not getting value because we build them in X number of hours. They're getting value from the service we delivered in that professional service.
So, in closing, while we wind up this conversation, Mark, have you seen any successful cases or use cases of Gen AI in the professional services space yet?
Yes, I have. We've been using it cautiously. So I work for a law firm now, and assisting our lawyers and our practices in exploring generative AI and new ways of working and how to improve billability and revenue to the firm and things like that. There are a couple services we provide that's time-based that generative AI has helped us with. So there is basically, I can't go into the details, but essentially our practice or our lawyers get a box of material or boxes full of materials, and they have 24 hours to summarize what's in those boxes or in those document sets and provide a recommendation moving forward. And these come in, they're called high volume, low value type services. It's the pennies on the dollars is what the client's paying. Faster we can get it done, the more money we make. So it's kind of an outcome-based model, if you will. In the past, we would bring in a team of people. They would work overnight getting through all this material and creating the summary and the recommendation back to the client. Now, generative AI can do it in a matter of minutes. However, the time is still spent, again, with the human in the loop, reviewing what generative AI. We can't treat it as all-knowing, all-seeing, but more of an intern that happens to be working with us, and they're really fast at doing their job. But we still need to check their work, make sure it's accurate, and that we can stand behind it as a firm, and we're not going to mess something up at our clients. That was pretty successful in terms of the number of, from getting it done 24 hours. We quadrupled the time, and it was very successful. The other area we're exploring, contracts and documentation, and basically, like the example I gave before, looking for clauses. Where else have we signed a contract with a clause that does this? In which case then, like for procurement, when we're signing contracts with firms to do work for us, we're looking through the precedents or the clauses in there, looking for where else have we done work like that in the past. And then that helps our lawyers in procurement look through going, yes, this is an acceptable risk because we've done it in these other instances, or we need to tweak it in a certain way. Still exploring, and there's more use cases on the path coming up, but we're still fairly new into this, which I think everyone is too.
It's interesting that you bring about the intern concept there, Mark. A previous guest on this topic also said the same thing, that Gen AI is a smart intern, smart unpaid intern. I don't know about the unpaid part, certainly a smart intern.
We're paying.
Yeah. So thank you for your time today, Mark.
My pleasure.
I appreciate your time here today to talk about the impact of Gen AI in professional services. I enjoyed your insight on this topic a lot, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you very much for having me, Cherie. This was great.
Thank you for watching this episode. Today we had Mark Ashbrook, Global Digital Transformation Leader, Business Strategist, Product and Program Management Expert. We explored the business value of generative AI in service-oriented professions and their biggest challenges. We talked about the negative biases. We talked about outcome-oriented billing. And we also talked about organizational readiness and some success stories as well. In future episodes, we will continue to dwell on the valuification of things with other thought leaders and industry executives. Stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Valuification of Things. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you did, please share this episode with your friends and family, and don't forget to leave a review. We're always looking for ways to improve and bring in the best content possible. If you want to be featured on this podcast, please drop us a line at podcast@valuification.com.